And I want to just take a quick minute to recognize some of the council members who are here. We have Councilman Bill Pridemore, Councilmember Mina Johnson, and Councilman Russ Pulley. We appreciate you all being with us today. I'm going to turn this over to you for your PIP, so off we go.
Thank you, Mary Barry. I'm Steve Bland, the CEO for the Metro Transit Authority. With me at the table today, to my right, are Ed Oliphant, our Chief Financial Officer, Marion Ott, the Chair of our board, Gail Carr-Williams from our board, and also several of our staff people from senior management. Actually, MTA has submitted 4 public investment plans for your consideration today. We'll cover each, but they're interrelated insofar as they all leverage existing and new partnerships to expand the range of mobility options available to existing transit riders and to make public transit a more viable choice for more and more Nashvillians. Our 4 PIPs are a mix of improvements to traditional mass transit services to make them more attractive, but our proposals also intend to integrate new technology and service innovations for markets where traditional mass transit really isn't effective. The first PIP that we wanted to enter into discussion is a proposal to extend service hours on high patronage MTA routes. This falls into the category of making traditional services more attractive. Mass transit is a hot topic for debate in Nashville now, largely due to this graphic. Nashville grew up as and continues to be an auto-dominated city. But as our region grapples with unprecedented growth, we'll need to use every tool at our disposal. And mass transit is the obvious underutilized asset in our current mix. And that slide?
Yeah, so you just make it so we can all see it.
Sure. Ooh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Keep going. Great, thanks.
This slide shows that Nashville is 76th in mass transit usage per capita out of the top 100 metro areas, 5th in vehicle miles traveled per capita. The need to grow the range of mass transit options is purely a function of space efficiency. Simply put, with 1 million more people projected to come to our region over the next 25 years, with 200,000 of these residents in Davidson County and 300,000 of the jobs, we're going to have to squeeze more people into essentially the same amount of space. And that's what this graphic covers. That space in the lower right is the number of folks who occupy the cars in the upper left in one bus or other transit vehicle. Historically, Nashville's lack of development density has made traditional mass transit difficult to develop effectively. For most people, driving was the most attractive alternative because it was easy, and you could go anywhere you wanted to in the 15-minute town. For people who had no choice who rely on transit, limited service options have also limited their ability to access the full range of opportunities that Nashville has to offer. Construction cranes in this photo show that our density is changing, and as we look for ways that mass transit can relieve the resulting congestion, we also need to consider how it will improve the quality of life for our long-standing riders. Through our N-Motion public engagement process, over 14,000 engagements with Middle Tennesseans have identified what they need to get out of their transit system. For our current riders, service coverage ranks very high, as is evidenced by the attached coverage map in this slide. So the MTA system goes to a lot of places in our urbanized area. However, service that runs earlier and service that runs later have been identified as top priorities for improvement, particularly among current riders. In addition, they've identified safety getting to and from bus stops, as well as the sense of security at waiting at bus stops, as high priorities. For traditional mass transit to work well, the key word is mass, where ridership density can support high levels of service at a very cost-efficient level. MTA presently operates 46 bus routes in 38 corridors. Among these, 19 individual routes in 13 corridors carry almost 80% of our total daily ridership. Now, these are the locations, Gallatin Road, Murfreesboro Road, Dickerson Pike, to name a few, that perform best and are best positioned to gain ridership and efficiency with additional service enhancements. In terms of our customers' express need for expanded hours of service, Nashville's large and rapidly growing hospitality and service industries demand almost a 24-hour workforce. With current service starting at about 5 a.m. and ending before midnight, a lack of transportation for many of these employment opportunities limits the chances that many of our citizens have to climb the economic ladder. Toward that end, we're proposing to initiate service at 4 a.m. and extend service until 1:30 a.m. in 12 corridors, currently serving almost 80% of our total ridership. The primary market for such services will be existing riders seeking additional employment opportunities, but a significant secondary market also exists for late evening trips for entertainment purposes. A key project partner in this effort will be the Metro Nashville Police Department. We currently partner with Metro Nashville Police for a variety of MTA security needs. Specifically, we extensively use off-duty officers at our Music City Central to maintain an environment of safety and security. So with that, we would plan to extend that partnership to make sure that the system is secure and that people have that sense of security in those early morning and late evening hours, particularly out in our neighborhoods. We'd also be looking to work with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhoods and individual Metro Council members in affected areas to make sure that citizens knew about the extended service. If we're able to move forward with this initiative, we would anticipate approximately 1,500 additional trips, one-way trips per weekday, by the end of the first year of service. Even more important, we expect this service enhancement to open up expanded opportunity and convenience to thousands of Nashvillians through access to new opportunities. And that concludes our conversation on that particular PIP.
In the brief, there's a total additional cost of 1.1 million on service hours, and then it generates a revenue of 150,000. Can you explain the variance of those two numbers? Is this just a sunk cost to extend hours? Is it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, typically, mass transit service is going to operate at a deficit. Overall, our system cost recovery, the percentage of total expense we get back from passenger fares, is in the 22-23% range. Late night hours would expect to yield a lower percentage of that. It would be expected to be lower level patronage than, say, rush hour service or school hour service. It's really more of a customer necessity as opposed to what you would call a hardcore business proposition.
So it's about 11%?
About 11%, about
And then
half the...
89% is the sunk cost you
Correct.
recover about 11?
Correct.
This also requires some capital costs, right? Some additional buses?
This one would not. Enhanced service hours could be done with the existing fleet. It would require additional employees, particularly operators, operations supervision, but essentially, because we're just adding hours on to the end of the day, we could use
So
current
if
fleet.
there's finite resources and transportation's important, how does this move the needle in the right way?
Sure. The primary beneficiaries of this are current riders who, frankly, either are having to find alternative ways, say, home from work after a very late shift, or who are not able to take advantage of expanded employment opportunities. So that's what we hear fairly often is that, well, I can get to work on the bus, say at a hotel or a restaurant or bar downtown, but you can't get me home. So some folks are taking that bus ride into work, and then maybe they're taking taxi, Lyft, Uber back, but that tends to be a much more expensive proposition, particularly as some of our neighborhoods are seeing the lower income folks, moved a little further out.
But to that point, it may be a higher cost to them, but with a 1.1 ask, is there another creative way to create those partnerships with Lyft or Uber where you're not having to invest in police officers, you're not having to invest in, drivers?
Right. Well, first of all, we're cheating ahead to a future PIP, so I don't want to get too much of a teaser out there. But obviously...
We hold our breath for another 10 minutes before we get to that.
Yeah, but obviously, I'd say the core theme of what we're presenting today is finding the right mix of traditional mass transit and the newer and more innovative, the newer developments in transportation.
Nancy?
Here, she's achieving 8 passenger hours per hour after a 6-month period. So what does that translate into actual anticipated ridership?
About 1,500 per weekday.
About per day? Okay.
This is something that could be scalable too. It's not an all or nothing sort of thing. If we said we can only do 6 routes instead of 13, or that's something we can talk about as well. Correct.
And you have the routes that are, of those, I think you said 13 routes, you, I assume, have them prioritized as to which ones would see the heaviest ridership and be the most
Yeah.
beneficial?
Yes, on a patronage level, we absolutely have that.
Do you know what kind of workers this most advantages? Who's not getting to ride home, and which part of our workforce this actually helps the most? Do we have a sort of a breakdown
Yeah,
of that?
the most dominant form for us are the lower wage service employees in terms of who's using.
You use
mass
hotel as an example. Is that primarily hotel restaurant?
Hotels, restaurants, custodial, those types of positions, so it could be custodial staff at hospitals, those types of positions.
Okay.
Have you ever reached out to any of those hotels to say, can we provide a service to your employees at this location for a route in the evening?
Sure, there are a number of the hotels that participate in what we call our Easy Ride program, where the employer subsidizes transit passes. Holiday Inn West End is an example, Vanderbilt Lowe's is an example. There are several of the larger hotels that do that.
And they pay for the ride, so
Correct.
it's not so if the service doesn't exist, then the ride doesn't happen, so there's no pay, but there might be a different way to think about how they pay. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I have an observation
Yes.
here. Just after approval, MTA planners would develop the route schedules and the run cuts. Who would kind of be at the table to help make those decisions, and how might the citizens have a say in that?
Well, all of our service changes like that go through a public process. I guess you could argue they're having their say, up to this point through the in-motion process, about 14,000 engagements to date. But typically, when we're doing a service adjustment, it goes through kind of a two-step process through our board, and that's all a public process where people have the opportunity to comment.
Anything else? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that first one. And we're going to switch over now to your next one.